the Ukrainians have been asking for this weapon for quite a while, and it's very, very controversial. And the Americans have finally said, yes, we'll give it to you. Okay? So this is what I'm talking about. This is the M270, the Multiple Launch Rocket System. Okay? For short, people call it MLRS. Now, you can fire these rockets. You can see this one has 2 pods. But you can fire the same rockets from this one, from the M142. Okay? So basically, these are 2 kinds of trucks that the U.S. military uses. And the Ukrainians really want them bad. Why are they controversial? Well, I'll tell you why. Because you can put a wide range, a wide array of rockets in these trucks. And some of them can reach so far they might enter Russia. Not might, they certainly can, right? So this is a little diagram of the various armaments and payloads that you can put inside these fire control systems, okay? And the ones that can go around 300 kilometers, these ones up here, the CMS or M39s, right? So those could certainly reach Russian territory, and that's why the United States has they've basically said that they'll give these MLRS to the Ukrainians, but only with the short-range rockets like this one, like the GMLRS, okay? So down here on the left, like the M30. Now, originally, CNN is the one that broke this story, and you can see the headline was, the United States is preparing to approve advanced long-range rocket system for Ukraine as Russian TV host warns of crossing a red line. So this was a few days ago on May 27th, okay? And again, it was kind of weird because, as usual, Biden was saying one thing and then they'd have to backtrack it and then ask for clarification and so on. In any case, they are certainly sending them now, right? How do we know this? Well, we know this because in the New York Times, Joe Biden wrote this guest essay, right? And he titled it, "What America Will and Will Not Do in Ukraine." And of course, it has all the usual stuff about, democracy and freedom and blah, 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 right? And then down here he says, of course, that I've decided we will provide the Ukrainians with more advanced rocket systems and munitions that will enable them to more precisely strike key targets on the battlefield in Ukraine. So he's basically saying, yes, we're going to give them the MLRS. Okay? And down here, he says that, the sanctions will continue and will continue providing Ukraine with advanced weaponry, including Javelin anti-tank missiles, Stinger anti-aircraft missiles, powerful artillery and precision rocket systems, radars, unmanned aerial vehicles, helicopters, ammunition, and so on, right? And of course, what does that all mean? Money, baby. That's a lot of money. A lot of money for the military-industrial complex. The 40 billion package which they approved the other day, 20 billion of that, so half of it was guaranteed for the military-industrial complex. And again, this came after they had an 800 million in assistance, as they call it, over there, and then another 800 million over here, and another 800 million, and so on. Okay, and this adds up and adds up. And of course, we're talking obscene amounts, right? And this is very, very good for the CEO or the board members at Raytheon who can now build new swimming pools in their mansions, right? They don't tell you about those oligarchs. Not allowed to say that. So again, just going back quickly to the M270, obviously there's some key differences between the M270 and the M142. Notably, not just that this one has 2 pods, but if you look down here, this one, it has tracks, okay? Whereas the M142 operates on wheels. It's a truck. So those are already some key differences that are very, very important. And of course, the issue here isn't what kind of truck or shall we say, launch system they're providing the Ukrainians. The real issue is are the munitions, okay? Because when you give the Ukrainians something like this, like the ATACMS or the M39, which can reach 300 kilometers, I mean, how do you know that they're not going to use it against the Russians? And when I say against the Russians, I mean, how do you know they're not going to fire it into Russian territory, which is certainly a red line? Even the United States says that. When Joe Biden is asked about it, he says, we're not going to give them anything that will here, I'll read it to you. He says, so long as the United States or our allies are not attacked, we will not be directly engaged in this conflict, either by sending American troops to fight in Ukraine or by attacking Russian forces. We are not encouraging or enabling Ukraine to strike beyond its borders. We do not want to prolong the war just to inflict pain on Russia. So take that with a very, very big pinch of salt. Again, this is Joe Biden, in the New York Times, writing for the New York Times. And, we cannot forget that just a few weeks ago, the Americans were bragging to the New York Times, to the same paper, how, they helped sink a key a Russian flagship in the Black Sea, the Moskva, or they helped to kill a bunch of Russian generals. I mean, this isn't a joke, right? And then the Biden White House had to go and walk that back. You know why they walked it back? Not because it's not true. It is true. But they don't want they don't want to risk a direct confrontation with Russia. Although at this point, I don't know if that's true either. It looks like they bloody are. It looks like they're bloody trying to risk a direct confrontation. Christ. Now, the United Kingdom, take a look at this from Politico. The United Kingdom are begging Uncle Sam to send their MLRS to the Ukrainians. Okay? So, again, that's an M270, as you can see. So the Politico says, again, this is today from June 1st, the United Kingdom is asking the US to sign off on a plan to send advanced medium-range rocket systems to Ukraine within a few weeks. Okay? So Prime Minister Boris Johnson spoke with Biden about the transfer of US-made M270 on Wednesday morning, and then they had all these talks. And why are they having these talks? Because usually when a country sells a weapon or a launch system or anything, that is used in war, when they sell them to other countries, in this case, the US selling an M270 to the UK, usually there are conditions, right? You cannot, if you sell it to the UK, that doesn't mean the UK can just go and give it to anyone they like. They have to get permission, and so on. And again, it's just the UK salivating, trying to be a good little poodle for the Americans. That's that's the sad state of affairs of where we are as a country. In any case, let me show you Ned Price from the State Department spokesperson. He was being hounded by, I say hounded, it's a bit of an exaggeration. He was being asked about these weapon systems and whether they'll actually be sent. And take a look at what he had to say.
In terms of providing what they need, they've been asking for long-range weapons. And the president over the weekend said Washington was not willing to send them systems that can hit inside Russia. But then they actually do have some systems that has the capability of hitting inside Russia. So could you clarify, what exactly the U.S. policy is there? Where do you guys draw the line?
Well, we continue to consider a range of systems that have the potential to be effective on the battlefield for our Ukrainian partners. But the point the president made is that we won't be sending long-range rockets for use beyond the battlefield in Ukraine. The core point is this. It is Russia that is and has attacked Ukraine. It is Russia that has started this war. It is Russian forces that are inside sovereign Ukrainian territory, and these are the forces that our Ukrainian partners are fighting back against. This is not a battle of aggression for our Ukrainian partners. This is about self-defense for them. This is about preserving their country, their freedom, their democracy, their prosperity and independence. And so every element of our security assistance has been geared towards that goal, and that is the goal of self-defense. It's the goal of, in many ways, self-preservation for our Ukrainian partners. So it is no secret, and I just made the case, that as the battle has shifted its dynamics, we have also shifted the type of assistance, the security assistance that our Ukrainian partners, that we are providing to them, in large part because they have asked us for the various systems that are going to be more effective in places like the Donbass, where the battle and the fight is quite different from what they encountered around the Battle of Kyiv.
But I mean,
I'm not going to keep this going on for ages, but you get you get the idea, right? They're basically towing this line that, yes, we're going to send them the MLRS, meaning the M270 or M142, but the type of rockets we're going to send them are short range or medium range. They can only go, around 70 kilometers and not 300 kilometers into Russian territory. Again, whether they actually do that, we'll see. Because the way this has been playing out so far is for example, with the ship, the Ukrainians, I'm telling you the official story, right? The official US narrative. They say, well, look, the Ukrainians saw the ship and they asked us to verify that this was the ship. And, we just kindly provided them with intelligence. And they decided to sink that ship, right? And so basically the Americans, what they could say, and I'm purely speculating here, is they could say, well, look, man, we just gave them the M270s and some, short range to medium range rockets. And they just happened to find a shipment of long range rockets, which they use. We had nothing to do with that. You know how this goes. You get the picture. I'm purely speculating here. This could maybe never happen, but I wouldn't be surprised because that's kind of how it's been going now. Just very quickly regarding the Stingers, right, which are basically a surface to air missiles, SAMs. This is from Reuters. This is May 28th. It says the United States buys more Stingers after missile success in Ukraine. Oh man, this looks like a good old headline from the 1980s. Although I say headline reluctantly because at least back then, when the U.S. was arming the Mujahideen with Stingers to fight the Soviets, they were trying a little bit, at least, to be, secret about it, right? Secretive about it. So the U.S. Army said on Friday it has awarded a contract worth $625 million to Raytheon. That's sweet Raytheon money, baby. For anti-aircraft Stinger missiles in order to replenish stocks sent to Ukraine. Okay? So, again, these are shoulder-fired anti-aircraft Stinger missiles. Okay? And they were in hot demand in Ukraine, where they have successfully stopped Russian assaults from the air and in neighboring European countries, which fear they may also need to beat back Russian forces. I'm just laughing at how much money they're making. Seriously, it's obscene. So U.S. troops have limited use for the current supply of Stingers, a lightweight, self-contained weapon that can be deployed quickly to defend against helicopters, airplanes, drones, and even cruise missiles. But the U.S. needs to maintain its supply on hand while it develops the next generation of a man-portable air defense system. So since February, the U.S. has shipped about 1,400 Stingers to Ukraine. U.S. allies also want to restock the weapons they shipped to Ukraine in recent months. The contract for up to 1,468 Stingers, so it's basically the same amount, was worth up to $687 million with options added in. With the leather seats and everything, with the stereo. So there was no timeline for completion of the work, but it was estimated delivery could take up to 30 months. Okay? Now, this is interesting, right? Because the Stinger production line was closed in December 2020. And in July 2021, Raytheon won a contract to manufacture more Stingers, but mainly for international governments. Right? So, here, the CEO of Raytheon said that the U.S. Department of Defense has not purchased a Stinger in 18 years. That's a little interesting fun fact for you, right? Quote, some of the components are no longer commercially available, and so we're going to have to go out and redesign some of the electronics in the missile of the Seeker head. That's going to take us a little bit of time. The Seoul Stinger facility in Arizona only produces at a low rate. So that's the way it goes sometimes, right? People are under the impression that, all these weapons are high-tech, and I mean, they're certainly high-tech. My point is that they were, invented just yesterday. No. Again, as we were just saying a few moments ago, they were using this in the Cold War. A lot of the bombers were also designed decades ago, and they still renew the contracts. The B-52 is one of those, for example, that comes to mind. It's incredible. In any case, I just want to tell you a little bit about how the United States ended up designing this MLRS, the M270 that they're sending now to Ukraine. It's kind of funny because during the Cold War, the Americans were sort of jealous of what the Russians had or what the Soviets had. When it came to mobile rocket fire like this kind and these sort of launch systems. The Russians were just simply better. And, when you think back to World War II, this goes back to World War II, one of the best weapons that the Soviets had against the Nazis, against Nazi Germany, was the Katyusha, right? So again, it's a same kind of design. It's a truck that has a bunch of rockets on the back, and it can fire a lot of them very quickly. And it's not just about, hitting a large surface area and gaining more ground that way. It's also the psychological effect, because, man, let me play you a clip of what these things sound like, and imagine that you're on the receiving end of that. It's quite terrifying, honestly. So these are the Katyushas from World War II, right? Yeah, it's no joke. It's no joke. And I think they nicknamed them Stalin's organs, right? So, again, just to show you a picture of that thing, here you go. That's a Katyusha, right? An absolute beast, honestly. So, in any case, I'm doing a little bit of geek history here, but just very briefly wanted to tell you about where this idea comes from. In any case, you can see here when it comes to what the Americans are sending, again, two types to watch out for. This is the M142, which has wheels, one pod, and the M270, two pods and tracks. And it's not clear yet what the Americans are going to send exactly, whether they're going to send only the M270 or not. But I think when it comes to the rockets, in terms of which type, it's certainly going to be the GMLRS, right? And not this long one over here, the ATCMS, which can reach 300 kilometers. But again, that's just the official narrative. I wouldn't be surprised if the Ukrainians suddenly found a box of ATACMs lying around somewhere. But again, I'm letting my imagination and my speculation perhaps go a little bit further than they should. But again, I would just be a bit wary, because they've said a lot of things officially, right? Oh, we didn't kill those generals. We didn't sink that ship. We just happen to tell the Ukrainians how to do it, The Americans always play word games. This is the number one thing. They're the best at this. I'm not kidding, man. Whether it's military operations, or contracts or extraditions, they always play word games. So you should always pay attention to what they say. In any case, if you want, go and read Biden's op-ed in the in the New York Times. Although honestly, it's basically, I guess I kind of summed it up for you. That was really it. And the funny part here, he says about nuclear weapons. Look at this. He says, "I know many people around the world are concerned about the use of nuclear weapons." Yeah, it's putting it mildly, mate. "We currently see no indication that Russia has intent to use nuclear weapons in Ukraine. Though Russia's occasional rhetoric to rattle the nuclear saber is itself dangerous and extremely irresponsible. Let me be clear, any use of nuclear weapons in this conflict on any scale would be completely unacceptable to us, as well as the rest of the world, and would entail severe consequences." Yeah, again, I'm not even sure what to make of that. This is so childish. Would be unacceptable to us. What do you mean unacceptable? We'd all die. There'd be nothing left. And I don't think the Russians are saber rattling. See, that's a problem here, where they're trying to say like, oh yeah, it's just the Russians babbling. They don't actually mean it. No. Honestly, man, whatever you think of Putin, he doesn't strike me as the kind of guy who would hesitate to push that button, right? I'm just saying, he doesn't strike me as the hesitant type. And if he's as evil as you make him out to be, I wouldn't push it. Does that make sense? And, he says extremely irresponsible. You want to talk about extremely irresponsible? Everything that's happening right now, this is extremely irresponsible. Playing with energy supplies in Europe and the rest of the world. Driving up prices, making people's lives harder, making medicine harder to find, food more expensive, gas more expensive, risking a nuclear war with Russia. That's irresponsible. There's a diplomatic a solution to this, and they're not taking it. They're simply not taking it, And the very interesting thing in this op-ed is that he says here, he's quoting Zelensky. Biden is quoting Zelensky, and he says, as Zelensky, president of Ukraine, said, ultimately this war will, quote, only definitively end through diplomacy. You're right there. You're absolutely right there. And the sad thing is that it could have been avoided completely through diplomacy. That's a very sad thing. But again, the Americans, they believe in something called a coercive diplomacy. And Biden alludes to that, right? It's this mindset like with Linebacker, in Operation Linebacker 1 and 2 in Vietnam. It's like, we will bomb the Vietnamese to the negotiating table, right? Very great diplomacy. You bomb your adversary to the negotiating table. I mean, what a mindset, really. So this is their idea, if that's even their goal. I don't think their goal is to end the war. I think their goal is to prolong it. I showed you these little tiny sums. These are just crumbs of the overall picture. But you see how many hundreds of millions these weapons manufacturers are making. So I don't think they have any intention to end it. But if they did, this is certainly not the wisest way to go about it. In any case, the reason this story about the MLRS, the reason it's so notable is because it's once again testing the waters with the Russians, right? This is why we're talking about this. Why am I showing you these pictures of trucks? The whole point is that this is, again, testing the waters with the Russians, okay? It's like, how far do we want to go? At first, it was like, we are just sending them money and non-lethal aid. And then, we're going to send them, just javelins and stingers and, handheld things and some guns. And then, we'll send them some tanks, right? Even Germany had this whole thing about, are we going to send them anything besides small munitions and small arms? And then it became, we'll send them the tanks. So how far is this going to go? Are they going to send them helicopters and submarines next? No, I'm serious. Like, where does this end? Probably not submarines and helicopters, but who knows? I wouldn't be surprised if they started giving them some old Hueys or out of service things. I really wouldn't be surprised. You have a lot of countries right now that are basically giving the Ukrainians, their leftover trucks and tanks and so on from the Cold War. Right? I mean, it's kind of good in a way because the Ukrainians are trained on Soviet equipment, right? So when I say countries are giving their old tanks, obviously in the case of Germany, the tanks that they sent the Ukrainians, about 50 of them, they're not trained on those. But other countries, especially the old Soviet satellite states, they have Soviet equipment, right? So Ukrainians are familiar with that. But in any case, I really think this is important because, just hypothetically speaking, any rogue element, shall we put it that way, right? Any lunatic, any guy who really wants to see the whole world burn, he just gets a hold of the right sort of rockets and puts them in an M270 and strikes inside Russia. I mean, how much are the Russians going to tolerate? I don't know. I don't know how far this goes before they say, maybe it's time for a nuclear war. I don't want to exaggerate, but I feel like the fact that they're talking about it, the Russians and the Americans, that this is coming up as a subject, I don't think it's a joke. That's the problem. That's the whole point. So once again, they're testing the waters. They're pushing the boundaries, seeing how far they can go before the Russians put their foot down. And we'll see. Let's hope it doesn't. This is already bad enough. What's happening in Ukraine now? Don't need worse.